完了，我们首先第一个，11月份的绩效和这个月的底薪就暂时是发不出来的，然后我们可以给我们一个N+1的赔偿。
但是呢，什么前提？
就是我们到16号统一撤退。
就是我明天还来上班，
打卡就行，建议打卡，建议打卡。
我刚还在这装蜡笔小新，我刚还在这装紫薇格格，工资真不发了，打定了，别定了，都倒闭了。
This woman was live streaming for a Chinese EV company when she got told live that the company is going under. In what looks like the Lehman Brothers pictures that we saw in 2008 of workers carrying their boxes, leaving the company. Zhang Auto was supposed to be the next big thing. A fancy electric car company backed by two of China's biggest companies, Baidu, the search engine giant from China, and Geely, who's already a big car manufacturer. And they launched their first car, Geely 07, back in September this year. But just 3 months later, they announced they can't afford to pay their salaries to the employees and that the company is going through financial trouble.
有人给说法呀！我几千个家庭都在这等着你了。没事，来，大家先安静，好吧？好，你说。等一下啊！听所有人。社保公积金别激动，接着一个回答。好，重点。第一，这些问题我都在解决。如果我今天逃避问题，我今天就不来了。那你说你的解决方案是什么？我的解决的方案没有方案，我现在。
On December 12th, Geely's office in Shanghai turned into chaos. Angry employees surrounded the CEO, Xia Yiping. They had just been told that the company is going under or at least restructuring, and employees are told they won't be paid a salary and they won't be paid their social securities for the month of December. And Geely Auto is having a large-scale layoff. It's reported that Geely will be keeping a few employees. The rest of them will either have to go and expect to get paid sometimes next year in February in what is called an N+1 compensation. The other option is that they can remain on the job, but they have to essentially afford to, or they have to pay the company to work. Both sound extremely ridiculous. Option one, you're told that you won't be paid until February, which, as we all know, those promises are probably empty promises and they will drag on, and these employees probably weren't going to get paid after. And the option B is you're literally using your own expenses to come to work. Yeah, because totally everybody wants to work for free.
我是极越汽车扬州门店主播子阳，这是我的工服，这是我的非什么书。截止12月14号为止，我们没有收到任何消息说要复工复活，没有。全部都是虚假消息，只是留了200个销售去门店干什么？因为有的客户要退订，我们在无偿无薪的上班，帮各位客户、各位订了车的车主。
我是极越杭州龙湖滨江门店主播倪念恩。截止至12月24日，我们门店依旧是停工停产状态，并没有如网上所说的那样复工，工资、社保等事宜依旧没有着落。
According to some of the Douyin accounts from employees of Jiyue, they have until December 16th to find out what the company will be doing for their compensation and wages. Very nice people, the employees there, are staying on the job without pay because they want to help the customers who had just pre-ordered the car to deal with any returns or refunds. But from what I understand, because the information is quite mixed right now, is that the company has tried to make sure that their employees are paid, at least for November and December, but as to where the company is going, that's still uncertain. But just imagine working for months and then finding out you won't be paid the wage. That's a nightmare scenario. But it seems like this is becoming a reality in China. Not just with the EV industry, with all industries in China, people are demanding that they be paid, which is, a very basic thing. But let's stick with the EV industry because for a few years now, it's been the most explosive and the most popular industry for growing in China. Xi Jinping has made EV one of its top strategic exports too. Now, obviously, you've heard of companies like BYD or even Xiaomi making some of their cars, and they've even exported some. But overall, the entire strategy from China when it comes to EV, much like the rest of their other industries, is about a political campaign. Or what I like to refer to, like the real estate sector, it's a giant Ponzi scheme. And that's exactly what the Jiyue Ponzi scheme entails. I'll explain in more details in the second half, but first let's talk about what happened to people who bought the car.
我这个也挺帅的，后面还有个问加不减。 打开车门。
好的。
2、1。
哎呀，刚提车3天的新车，牌照都还没上，说倒闭就倒闭了。
全国还有比我更惨的极越车主吗？师傅家里人买了3台极越，买的时候吧，谁劝都不管用。就直到现在，
刚交的全款转天就倒闭了。
对，刚交的全款转天就倒闭了。
Right? Think about the question. How could you go from launching the car back in September, then 2-3 months later, going bankrupt? While their car sales were underperforming, that's a part of the truth. But the reality is everything in China really doesn't come from real performance. It usually comes from things like corruption and financial undercutting behind the scenes that really just gets rid of, well, you can accredit to maybe 70 to 80% of the problems when something goes wrong. Now, let's first talk about what happened to the car buyers. So you started to see a lot of these videos of people who bought the car, say, a day before the company decided that they were going under, or a week before that they were going under. Some people paid their entire car in cash or paid it in full. Some people, they're now left with no backup supports. What happens if an EV it starts to have troubles? What about maintenance? And that includes many of the employees at the company, because when you work at Jiyue, maybe you started a month ago and then you decided to take out a loan to buy one of their cars. That's even what happened to one of the live streamers who was doing the live stream for the company. She had just bought a car a day before this happened, and now she's left to pay $400 or $500 a month without any sort of compensation from the company. Can you imagine that? You buy an iPhone, right, or any phone, you get a year warranty at least. But imagine if you bought a car that costs $30,000 to $40,000, and then a day later finding out, well, you're probably not going to get the right maintenance and the after-sales support that you need. Like, if you don't call that a scam, what else would you call a scam? So somebody online said this perfectly: a typical Chinese person's experience, owning an unfinished home because the real estate developer was corrupt and left with the money in their pockets, and you're left with an unfinished home, owning a car, and a day later, the manufacturer decided to abandon the company and leave. But hey, at least now the cars are limited editions. Okay, let's focus on what actually went wrong in the industry based on Jiyue and just China's EV industry as a whole. According to a media called 38KR, what they've found is that since 2018, there's been at least 487 electric vehicle brands that had risen up in China. But by the end of 2023, only about 40 plus had remained. All of the other ones either went bankrupt, went under, and that's according to incomplete statistics. So like I mentioned, this is a political situation because, like a lot of the other industries in China, everything happens because there is a call for a national mobilization. It's almost like a political movement in a sense that let's get everybody on board because we want to surpass the US or other countries in this particular sector. Because the entire action is politically motivated, it's not driven by the market or a cutting-edge breakthrough technology, well, you obviously have a lot of people who want to capitalize on this and make a bit of money. So Jiyue is one of the companies that got started in this particular side with this particular set of goal by Baidu, which is China's version of Google, as well as Geely, which is a car manufacturer. But they thought they had the upper hand in the situation because Baidu is training AI, is essentially doing all of the electronic stuff for the car. Meanwhile, Geely is manufacturing the actual cars. So it's like you have the best of both worlds when it comes to making an EV. But what seems to have happened with Jiyue is that a few months ago, according to some of the information that I was reading online, the parent company, one of them, Baidu, had realized that the investment money that they were putting into Jiyue wasn't being effective. So they started to do an internal audit. But when they tried to do the internal audit, the CFO, or then the CFO, essentially escaped to Singapore and left with a lot of the money. So they likely found out that the actual company was essentially laundering money to be pocketed from those CCP officials and top management rather than using those funds properly. Sounds familiar? Because that's exactly what many of the real estate developers did in China's real estate sector. So it seems like Baidu has pulled up further funding into the company, and that's why there's a lack of funds, and that's why the company is going under. But if you extrapolate the picture a little bit bigger, this is just one company going through this. But in the overall grand scheme of things, the Chinese EV industry is one of oversupplying, over-manufacturing, and essentially delivering a product that doesn't have a lot of demand even in China today. As 2024 ends and as 2025 comes closer and closer, we are going to start seeing this demand, which was artificially created in the first place for EV cars in China, to dramatically come down. And we're going to see more companies go under simply because, there never been a real effective solution to this problem, which is China's desire apparently to surpass the world when it comes to EV. I don't really know what they were trying to solve, but it seems like they thought they created this problem and the solution for it, which is to have almost 500 different companies come up and seeing who can make it to the top. The same thing happened with their semiconductor industry as well. Obviously, that failed after government stimulus and supports and mega semiconductor funds or whatnot. Still didn't make anything happen. But the same thing is happening now with the EVs. Also, like their real estate sector as well, overbuilt houses, overbuilt apartments, not enough demands. And as the situation becomes further and further down the line, you end up with unfinished homes, you have abandoned buildings, you have ghost cities. And as just mentioned, now there's another reason for this in China, as always, is corruption. So a lot of these companies, they're really in it to make a short amount of money. They're not really in it to build a good product. Sure, they will have a product, but that product is really just a front for the bigger portion of the money, which is going to their own pockets. And don't think that the EV industry is the only problematic one, because every industry in China is going through the same thing. This is just a recent news. Yakult, which is a Japanese yogurt brand, is removing their, or I guess you would say exiting from their Shanghai operation, closing down their Shanghai factory. That's just one of the foreign companies that's exiting China. And there's a big reason for it. Obviously, the political and market environment in China is terrible right now, but the exit of foreign investments is going to continuously break down many people's careers, as well as add further pressure to that already existing bad job market. And there's almost videos daily of people, workers, who are seeking to get their wage. They haven't been paid for a few months. Let me just go through a list of them. This is China Post workers demanding pay. China Post is like USPS or Canada Post, or I don't know, whatever the government postal service is in your country. They have not been paid. This is traditionally considered a safe job in China. Now they're demanding wages. You have construction workers. They're taking steel rebars to go up against the local law enforcement because they haven't been paid. So they're protesting. And this happened in May this year. This was a Shanghai technology company. And just one day in the afternoon, they declared that the company is going under and you're left with 800 employees without pay, right? Nobody knows what's going on. And this happened on December 9th. A large number of migrant workers and contractors gathered at the entrance of a developer called Longguan to demand their wages because, well, they have not been paid. And this one happened on December 12th in the province of Shanxi. China Construction 8th Engineering Bureau had owed wages to migrant workers, and workers knelt outside of the construction site and live streamed their demands, which is asking for their pay. And that live stream had been cut afterwards. Also on the same day, December 12th, a large number of workers from the Forest Park real estate project in northern China, they rushed into the sales office to demand wages. All the workers had brought blankets with them, sat on the floor at the sales office, essentially saying, you gotta pay me or I'm not leaving. A week earlier, December 6th, workers at Huangfa Newtown threatened to jump off a building to protest being, again, owed wages, this time for 9 months. Same day, workers in the Xi'an photovoltaic project of the Three Gorges Energy occupied the company to demand their pay. On December 9th, in Nantong, which is in Jiangsu province, this one is from Hongtai Precision Machinery Technology Company, closed down. The company went under and workers are now demanding they be paid. December 7th, project workers from China Construction 3rd Engineering Bureau in a city in Guangdong province blocked the door of the office again to demand their wages. December 9th, in Chengdu in Sichuan province, workers of real estate developer Zhang Company slept on the floor of its hotel to demand their wages. Police came to drive them away. So, like I mentioned, this is going to continue to happen, and China is going through a complete tumultuous period of not having enough money. And so don't be surprised if their economy collapses. And I don't think it's going to be a very far-fetched prediction of that, at least. All right, that's it today for the episode on another EV company has gone under and what that really means when it relates to China's broader economic situation and where things are going to be going. If you enjoy the content, leave a like, comment below your thoughts, subscribe to our channel. All right, until next time, bye-bye.